What makes someone a balanced leader? Hey there, this is your friend and guide, Caroline. On today's Balanced Leader, my incredible guest and I share strategies to help you lead with confidence, stay resilient, and avoid burnout. This isn't just about leadership, it's about thriving holistically in mind, body, and spirit. Ready to recalibrate? Well, let's dive in and create the balanced life you deserve.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode that's going to be packed with insights, inspiration, and the kind of honest conversation that help us grow as leaders. So first, our guest today is someone truly special, Gabi Varga, a trauma-informed personal trainer who's going to have you change the way you think about strength, resilience, and how our bodies carry the stories that we've been telling ourselves. It's a holistic approach to healing and how you can transform not only how you feel physically, but how we show up every area of our lives. And trust me, this is coming from me personally because I work with Gabi. Her wisdom's going to have you rethinking about how it means to take care of yourself. But before we dive in, I want to ask you a question. Are you feeling stuck in your career? Are you working harder and harder but still not getting the recognition, respect, or opportunities you know you deserve? If you've been spinning your wheels trying to prove yourself but feel you're just going in circles, it's time for a shift. That's why I'm creating Elevate Your Leadership Presence. This isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter. It's about stepping into your power, building unshakable confidence, and showing up as the leader you're meant to be. We'll take you from foundations all the way through to strategy. So if you're interested in that, I'll have the waitlist link in the notes. Click there and you'll be the first to hear about what's coming up. Again, the waitlist for Elevate Your Leadership Presence is now open. And I want to thank you for being a part of my community. So don't forget, you'll get exclusive early access to the program and some exciting bonuses. So stay tuned. Now, back to our program.
Hello and welcome to another edition of today's Balanced Leader. I'm very excited with today's guest. She's somebody I personally know and work with. So let me tell you a little bit about Gabi Varga. So Gabi is a trauma-informed personal trainer, and she's got over 20 years of experience as a fitness coach. Her journey began really as a fitness coach or instructor in her home country of Hungary, and then she continued it in Montreal, and this was group fitness. But after moving to Vancouver, she transitioned into personal training. And Gabi's personal experiences, including surviving emotional abuse, relationships, and struggling with obsessive exercise, inspired her to adopt a trauma-informed approach to movement, which is just beautiful. Wait till you hear about it. This path allowed her to create a space where clients feel safe, autonomous, and supported. Elements she recognized were often missing in traditional fitness settings. So her passion for somatics has led her to develop a unique approach to fitness that fosters both emotional and physical resilience, helping individuals connect deeply with their bodies. So Gabi, thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited.
Hi, Caroline. I'm so happy to be here. It's so special.
Yes, it's going to be great. I'm really excited. And just for the listeners to know, many of you know that I struggle with an autoimmune disease and degenerative arthritis. And really, weather can play a big proponent to movement ability and stability. But I would also say trauma, right? Whenever we're stressed, whenever we feel overwhelmed, we don't realize what we're doing to our nervous systems and the trauma that we put into it, and then it has to come out somehow. So if we keep it bottled up, our body starts to revolt. And I'm so excited to share with you that I currently work with Gabi, and really, to be honest, not only has the movement gotten better, but the stability and the ability to do more things. So I'm so excited to share Gabi's story with you. So Gabi, let's start. I really invited you to the podcast because truly, it's a profound impact, the trauma-informed approach to movement. And I think it's kind of unique. But it's impacted individuals like myself that have that limited mobility. So maybe share a little bit about your journey for where you did group training into becoming a personal trainer today that focuses on more trauma informed practice?
Let me put this way that I lived a very autopilot life growing up and in my early years of teaching group fitness classes. So I always enjoyed being in a group settings, yelling and making people move. It was very fun. But right before I was about to move to Montreal or before moving to Vancouver, I noticed this plateau that I became so stuck and I just didn't enjoy it anymore. It was way too robotic. And I recognized it so many times, but it was just the right timing that I had to move somewhere else. And I started to recognize that in Vancouver as well with my personal training work. But I noticed that it took a longer time because just somehow I was able to reinvent myself many times. I never knew that there was a missing piece, and that was the mental capacity, the mental resiliency, the inner work, the personal growth. And I was just going through the motions, and I'm a very happy person, generally speaking, but I felt so stuck being in this hamster wheel. And after leaving my ex-husband, speaking of autoimmune disease, it wasn't an autoimmune disease, but in 2016, I just couldn't get rid of a cold. And it stuck around for months. And I started to recognize that my body just was falling apart and my marriage was not healthy. And I wasn't ready to see that there was emotional abuse going on that happened after leaving my latest partner. So it took a couple of times. But after leaving my ex-husband, I went through a lot of, you can call it traumatic events. I became so deep in my trauma. I was living through doing a lot of destructive behaviors like smoking, drinking, unsafe dating. And because I needed an outlet to see my own worth, but it wasn't coming from inside because I hadn't done the inner work because I didn't know there was any. So I was looking for external validation and, dating multiple men. That's just, but I thought that was the answer, but it turned out it wasn't the answer. And so after a long period of time, a couple of years, then I met my latest partner, and then I found somatic experiencing or somatic therapy. And because I became interested in, okay, there must be something else, I started questioning things. And I like to mention that because that's when change starts to happen, when we become aware, we start questioning our reality, start questioning, am I happy? Is this the life I want to live? And simultaneously working on myself and being in another abusive relationship, which I still didn't recognize I was in, but I found trauma-informed personal training and everything came together. I was doing a course and the course led me to finding the trauma-informed personal training course. So making choices led me to finding trauma-informed approach in the fitness space. And I'm so grateful because if it wasn't for being trauma-informed, I would have left the fitness industry for sure, because I just couldn't do that no pain, no gain mentality anymore. The tough love. I like to be kind to my clients.
You like to have fun.
Yeah, and have fun. So it was interesting to recognize that, oh, I don't have to do the way that I've been told for the longest time. And I started to find ease, and I started having more giggles and not taking this whole thing too serious, but having the knowledge, having all the scientific background that backs up the whole idea of trauma-informed fitness. That's
So let's talk a little bit about trauma-informed fitness, because you and I know what it means because of what we do. It's pretty common for us to deal with people that have trauma, and there's the conversation around big T, little t, but I'd love to explore what does trauma informed truly mean. And I know we can think of trauma as there's grief, there's so many big things, like you talked about divorce, we talked about health or illnesses that you have, but you don't have to wait for something significant in
Mhm.
trauma to impact you. Absolutely, you want to deal with those things, and those are a separate entity in their own because there's the internal, external you have to do. But there's other trauma that people experience in day to day. Are you able to speak to that a little bit, Gabby, or maybe even just give examples of the types of clients and the trauma that they've come to you with?
It's the big T and little T traumas. That the big T is, as we know, that's one big event that happens to us, and little T traumas when, like, let's say an abusive relationship where it happens throughout a period of time that we don't even recognize what's happening to us. So it's a sneaky beast. But speaking of my clients, I've met all kinds of wonderful clients, including you, with very different paths, such as sexual abuse, emotional abuse. I've met women growing up in toxic environment, parents. I heard stories that just, oh my God, I can't even wrap my head around it. And I feel very humbled by hearing the experiences. Most of my clients are very open to sharing their experiences. So the sexual abuse, I'm trying to think all kinds,
When
but
we think about
these
when
are
we
the main.
Yeah, when
I've
we think about leaders and we think about the corporate world, there are forms of, and I'll just tie in, like there's forms of bullying. There are types of harassment. Doesn't always
Mhm.
have to be sexual harassment, could be verbal harassment.
Yeah,
There could definitely be just somebody who's so stressed out and burnt out that their body, again, it's your nervous system that's going to start to
mhm.
send signals, and your body's going to go into that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and it's going to start to impact how you physically feel, how you physically can move, how you physically can complete everything, which can lead to depression, anxiety, all sorts of
Yeah.
things, right? So I don't want people to think that, oh, well, if I haven't gone through a divorce, I haven't gone through sexual abuse or an addiction or something like that, that trauma informed training isn't for me. I think
Yeah,
it's definitely super beneficial for so many people, even at a lower scale before you get to that stage.
absolutely. And it's good to start with, even if you recognize that you need something very different and you don't know why, but you feel that just the gym environment, or as I call them, conventional trainers, don't work for someone, then it's a good idea to explore a trauma-informed personal trainer for whatever reason, because you want to feel autonomous, empowered, supported, heard. And because a lot of times I've seen it and I've done it. Trust me, I've done all the damage to clients as well in the past, that we force our clients into something that they are not ready for. But the body language says it, but they are not, because they go into the people pleaser, the fun response that, okay, I just want to please my coach so they will be proud of me. So I'll do it anyways, even though nothing in my body wants to do this right now. And when my clients say no to me, and even if there's the F word in front of it, I'm like, yeah, I've done my job. I'm good. I'm good. Because that's what I want to hear. I want to hear my clients say no more often, that this doesn't work for me. This doesn't feel safe. And no questions asked.
I like how you call that out because back in the day when I was probably in my 20s, 30s, part of one of the companies that I worked for, you had a gym membership, and I used to go and used to push myself, right? Where you were like the no pain, no gain, like you said, that really came to life. But then when you think about some of the other fitness that was more around movement, and I'm couple of years older than you, wink. But I think about going back to the days of like Jane Fonda and stuff like that. They were more just around movement as opposed to really pushing to the point where you hurt yourself. And that's
Yeah.
one thing with you that I've really enjoyed is when your body screams no, listen to it and say no. That's part of your boundaries that you're setting up. And you and I have been able to adjust things to be able to kind of say, okay, oh, I can't do this, but I can do this, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to share that. And I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, and thank you for saying this, because this circles back to one of your previous questions about, okay, what kind of people I work with. Because a lot of people come to me with injuries,
Mhm.
and because they overtrain, they push themselves too much. And what happens through trauma, that we become disconnected from our bodies, even though dissociation may happen. And what that does to the body is we don't recognize when we are pushing through our stress threshold. You guys know.
Threshold,
Second
yes.
language. That it's we don't recognize that the body is in danger, because we only see the goal in front of us. We don't check in with ourselves that, okay, there's a big possibility I'm going to hurt myself, I'm going to get injured. So a lot of clients come to me with injury, and we work around that. We make sure that we find, as you said it so well, that, okay, you may not be able to do this yet, but we find an alternative that the body feels safe with, and we make it accessible for you. We make it easier, more gentle. We work around your abilities, your capabilities. So it's not about me trying to fit you into a box. It's all the way around that, okay, we make the program accessible for your needs.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And you're adaptable that way, which is what I love too,
Super
right?
important.
Because like I
Yeah.
said, there's those days where you feel good, and then there's days where you may have a setback, and that's okay. And there are tools that you end up with that you get to carry with you. And if you choose, and we'll talk about it later, but if you choose to continue to do those because you're having an off day, and you take a
Yeah.
step back and do those, you can do that too. So that's what I love about it.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about somatics, because that's another word that's thrown around a lot. And I feel like people use it very loosely now. And
Thank you for saying that.
yeah, because somatics means something. And so when they say somatics yoga or somatics training, or right, I want listeners to be able to do their due diligence and understand what somatics means. So maybe you can share a little bit or talk a little bit about what somatics and why it's so effective for building both that emotional and physical resilience.
Ooh, this is a loaded question, and I may ask you to take it
Repeat part.
apart when I
Okay,
answer to the first part. That's definitely part of my trauma. That it's hard to
no worries.
remember
Yeah.
everything. That so somatic, soma means body. So somatic work is body-based work. So I really effing hate that now it has become a buzzword.
Yeah.
And because my Instagram knows that I'm interested in somatics, now it's ads coming up, oh, lose weight with somatics. Those two can go hand in hand. People need to understand that when you do somatic work, you're not working on weight loss.
Right.
That's just, for me, that's a huge no. And a lot of trauma-informed personal trainers recognize that. And we call that, can I swear here? Is it okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we call that shit out, because the general population gets so confused by, oh, weight loss and somatics. I'm like, no, those two things cannot happen together.
Yeah.
However, when we do somatic work, then it's possible that a byproduct will be weight loss, because we are shedding all those layers. So the body is not holding on to the weight anymore, but that's a lot deeper than what I would go into right now. So yeah, I think I answered to the first part. So please tell me the second part again if you
Yeah,
can.
so we kind of defined what somatics is. So hopefully everybody knows the definition of what
Mhm.
somatics is. It's really around the body, right? And it's the healing of parts of the
Mhm.
body. So how does it play, like when you think about training and somatics, how do you specifically adjust your fitness approach using somatics compared to what you used to? So maybe just explaining the difference between working out and, you know, what you do, trauma,
Yeah.
somatic training at this point.
Mhm. It's more let me go back to when I started using this whole idea, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was so influenced by my own somatic therapist that I started using these little bits and pieces in my fitness sessions with clients, and it made me overly excited. And I had no idea, but technically it's somatic therapy or somatic experiencing works with micro movements, that it recognizes that the tiny little shifts in the body. However, first we need to become regulated. So if the nervous system is dysregulated, I recognize in my own work with clients that if someone comes in through the gym door or virtual anything, I recognize if they are discombobulated or all over the place, and I need to pull them into the present, make sure that they get a certain level of regulation, they become one with their bodies and minds, because if they are not, then that's when injury can happen. If dysregulation still occurs, then the client cannot do that level of that depth of work that I offer to my clients. But the cool thing is my clients, when they find me, when sign up for a consultation, they already know what they are looking for.
Right.
So that's very important. So they already have a good idea about what dysregulate feeling, what it feels like to be dysregulated and such. So first is making sure that they can get regulated throughout the session. And then finding, obviously, I always come with a program and we always try to progress. So there's the more like the fitness part, even though I do a lot of body mechanical things. But the little shifts, once you're regulated in your body, then you're going to be able to recognize the little shifts in the body. And that's super cool to see it. Like, okay, you always say it so bad that, oh, I just noticed that little tiny little movement. And that's what it means to be regulated and present. And maybe you recognize you're frustrated today. That's okay. So I don't try to force my agenda onto you. We have a program, but we make sure that your level of awareness, how you feel emotionally, mentally, physically, we all put that into consideration rather than just, well, we have an agenda and we have a goal to achieve, and no matter what, we are going to push through. So it's, I watch your body language, I watch how you move, and if you don't tell me that it doesn't feel safe, but it doesn't look safe, I'm going to stop and say, hey, how do you feel? Do you feel this is something that you're open to do or not so much? So when we peel back those emotional layers too, that's when the people pleaser tendency, it's really interesting to see when it comes out of clients. And I'm like, no, we are not going to do that because your body tells me not to. And there's no further discussion. It's interesting that clients trust me with that. And I like to say this, that my job isn't to push you. My job is to hold you back. And it sounds very counterintuitive.
No, it's an interesting way that you do it. And that's why I love it. The other thing I guess we should preface is that your training is done through Zoom. And so people are doing it out of the safety of their own homes.
That's it.
And it's not like a ton of gym equipment that's required either, right? It's really is more around movement, around pushing certain joints. So even if, and I'll explain, one time I came to Gabi and I was saying, well, my right hip was bothering me. And so we were able to tweak a couple of movements that have allowed that hip to loosen up and just let it know that it's safe and that it's okay to do what it is that we're trying to do. Just giving it lots of love. So I thought, oh shoot, I should tell people that we do it. It's done out of the safety of your home. So you don't have to go anywhere. Just put your gym clothes on and have a couple of tools and you're all set to go. Yeah.
And if someone is in the Vancouver area, I do in person too. But it's very cool that before we started your podcast recording, a client of mine came to my own home because I recognized that we did quite a few sessions in the gym, but people were slamming, and I
Mm.
watched her, and she wouldn't have said anything. Every time, oh, it's fine, it's not a problem. But I ended up making the call that, hey, let's try. Are you open to try it in my home? And she said, oh, yeah. And she loves my dog. So that's a plus. But just we don't need a lot of equipment. Like at the beginning, we start with a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball and the foam roller. Because what happens to the body through trauma, that the muscles tense up. So we hold on to tension because the trauma cycle cannot complete itself. So the bracing happens. We lose our breath. It's not going to be as available for us. So everything tenses up. And for that reason, I believe in not starting with strength right away, because if the muscles are already in a contracted phase, muscle strength means we would have to contract it further. But if it's already tight,
Mhm.
the muscles cannot contract
Right.
any longer. So we need to loosen up. And a lot of people don't even recognize how tight they are and how much they hold their breath. So having all the trauma-informed tools, regulating the nervous system, feeling safe, feeling relaxed, and doing through Zoom in their comfort of their homes, it adds another level of safety. And that's very important.
Yeah, and I
So
think that autonomy and that safety are so important because it allows you to learn to be in control of your body, to listen to it, to understand when something is off. You know, speaking from experience, there are days where when I know something, when I'm intuitive to my body and now I have the autonomy to listen to it, to do things on my own, I can identify things and then I can take what you've taught me and use that
yeah,
to address whatever that concern is, as
yeah,
opposed to waiting for whenever we have our call. And that's what I
right,
love about it.
yeah,
It's you're really teaching us how to maintain and do things moving forward. It's not a one and done. I have to wait for Gabby, otherwise I'm going to be in
yeah,
excruciating pain or not be able to move, right? I love that. When I think about leaders and how overwhelmed and stressed they can be, because I often talk about how we're in a fast-paced world that's ever changing, and you're either sitting all day at the computer or in meetings, or you're sitting in the car and you're going from place to place, or you're traveling in an airplane. Those can have a long-term effect on your body, especially if you add on top of that overwhelm and stress, you're exhausted, right? So
yeah,
now your body is more apt to injure itself.
yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, Gabby, kind of if you've seen people around stress and overwhelm and just what I would call mental wear and tear and what that can do to your nervous system.
I would talk about what it does to the body. So the nervous system, that I'm going to wrap it around more like the what happens to the movement patterns, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
that,
Love it.
however, I like to peel back the layers how I'm going to phrase this. But when we get stuck in a trauma response, what happens, as you said earlier, flight, fight, freeze, fawn, then the movement patterns get altered because of the tension, because of everything starts to come out of alignment. Let's say, there's one weaker link in the body and everything follows, right?
Right.
So with that, I really recognize when someone is in freeze response, or we can also call it collapse. However, there's nuances between the two, but I'm not going to get into that. We can keep it under the same umbrella, that the shoulders fall forward. The back, the old sweet ladies with the big back hump, they did not look like that when they were 20, 30, right? So
No.
that happened over time. So the chest muscles get shortened, the back muscles get lengthened, everything comes out of alignment, hip flexors, the hips get tight. When flight response happens, that's when we are ready to fight, or sorry, flight. When we are ready to run away, or when we want to fight back, the hip flexors tighten because we want to do something about the situation. But when like I said, the trauma response doesn't get completed in the body, that tightness stays with us and alters the breathing and everything. So with that, it starts to alter our body mechanics. And that's how I can tell when someone walks in front of me or beside me, and I look at their body mechanics, or that's the fancy word, but movement patterns. I really see, it tells me a story. What's been happening to that person. I'm not sure. Am I answering to the question?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Awesome. We are on track. So it's very fascinating and saddening at the same time that traumas can do so much to our bodies. And with the emotional piece, depression and everything, they just go hand in hand. Like as the movement patterns get altered, depression happens, the mental health start to go. And I'm a living example as well, that I really recognize that when my mental health isn't the greatest, movement goes out of the window. And it's a good excuse that I have a dog, so I have to walk her, because at least I get that done. But that's why I like to say that I'm first and foremost a personal trainer with trauma-informed approach. But I really like when my clients come to me and say, hey, I already have a therapist, I already work with someone in the mental health department, because that's out of my scope of practice. I'm happy to be a soundboard and listen, because I have life coaching certification, but I cannot give advice. So I always make sure that I take a step back and I hold safe space and make sure that I don't cross that boundary.
Right.
But when it comes to depression and all those things, I see my clients deeply, and I don't try to cheer them up like, oh, it's okay, it's let it go. Or I hate when people do that. Just let it go. I'm like, if that was so easy, we wouldn't be here today. Yeah, I could go on and on with this one.
Yeah, no, and I loved how you said you could see the story, because what that tells me is, and I know this is your goal with your clients, whether you say it or not, is when you think about who you are as a person, what brings you joy, what brings you passion, what brings you fulfillment, what nourishes you, what is exciting for you.
Yeah.
And if you think back to potentially, hopefully, if you've had a good childhood, some people have had traumatic childhoods, but if you go back to thinking about whenever it was that you felt your best, whenever you felt free, like I always picture myself lying in the grass looking up at the clouds, because I used to love doing that, right? Daydreaming and things like that. And I think remembering that you can go back to that time physically, mentally, it's just you need to do the work. And so when we think about leadership today, I really believe in boundaries, and I've often taught clients about boundaries. I always say that to me is the first stepping stone that you have to have in order for you to be able to maintain everything. And then when you can maintain your personal and your professional life, your physical, right, your emotional, you bring your best self forward because you have that self-confidence, and then you can lead by example and teach others. So, you really have to put that work into yourself first to be able to say, okay, time out. I need to take care of me, because otherwise I'm not bringing my best self forward. And I can't be that happy, passionate person that I generally am, right? You and I joke often about how we love humor and how we bring humor into stuff. So I love that, because that is so a part of who we are, and to be able to bring that into our lives is precious. So I love that. It just made me think of that when I was thinking, you can look at somebody and see their stories. I was like, the weight of the world, right? Like you always see those things getting piled up on somebody's shoulders and they're weighting down. Like that's truly what happens to you, and you've got to peel that stuff away. So go ahead.
And I love how you put it, that bringing that old self, the true self back that we might have lost growing up. And there's room for being funny. There's room for humor. I'm not trying to save the world. And I love that. I used to work at a yoga studio as a front desk person, and then my manager said, it's a yoga place. It's unless it's burning down, it can wait until tomorrow.
It's so true. It really
and
is. Yeah.
and it's important to let people be themselves,
Yeah.
but they might not even know who they truly are, and letting them say no when they really need to when they really want to say yes, and allow them to say no and provoke them to say no, even if it's hard for them. There's so much healing in that, so much healing.
Yeah.
So I like to say this way that the tools that I offer, and I love how you said it, that I want you to be able to use it in your own time. I don't want my clients to feel they are locked to me and they are dependent on me. I want free people. I want free thinking people. At the same, so when I lost my train of thought. See, that happens when I got too excited. So it's important to let people be themselves and find who they really are within a session. Of course, while everyone is respectful and we have boundaries, because at the end of the day, we are business owners and we have bills to pay. But we can lead with kindness. And that's something I didn't learn in the first place. It was just pushing through and doing the things that was expected of
Yep.
me, of us.
Yep.
And now, no, I can do it different. And my clients can do it different too.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I like that. I think that brings up some of what society tells us, some of what our families or the beliefs our family have raised us believe. And we could do a whole nother podcast probably on
yeah.
that one around how to break those beliefs, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing that I'm passionate about is just like anything, take what resonates and leave what doesn't, right?
Absolutely.
There's
I love
there's
that.
going back to your own values, and as long as you're living within your own values,
Yeah.
who's to say you can't do something? Who's to say no to you
Yeah.
if it's something you want to do? You
Yeah.
have to be the one that feels good about it. And I've always said to my listeners, listen, as I'm in the back half of my 9 of the golf course in my life, you know, living your life, bringing your gifts forward, living your life in a way so that you don't have regrets at the end of the day, and
Mhm.
that you can say that you left a beautiful legacy behind. That is my focus. And you can't do that if you're not physically able to do certain things, right? Like there are people that have disabilities that are still, the stuff they can do is profound sometimes,
Oh
right?
my goodness.
Right. And I'm just
Yeah,
like, wow, if that person can do it, I have no excuse, right?
exactly.
So it's amazing. But at the same time, I think, you do bring your best self forward when you feel at your best, when you've had your rest, you've been eating well, you've been working out and exercising, or at least some
Yeah.
form of a movement, because
Yeah.
that's where your self-confidence really shines and
Yeah.
you get to do what you want to do. So,
And I find
yeah,
it has to come from us.
yes,
It cannot happen through someone else's pressure.
correct.
And I like to say, you word it different, but I always say, take it or leave it. This is what I think. But at the end of the day, as long as you're within your integrity, and it's okay, it's all
All
good.
good. It's all good. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions, because I'm sure you've worked with a number of people over the year, but what are some of the common misconceptions people come to you with around movement and exercise? Because I like to look as movement and exercise that provides you with that more balanced, gentle path. But what would you say some of the misconceptions have been?
I love that. I love that question. First, if we remove the movement piece, people think I'm a therapist
Okay.
because they see trauma informed. And I learned the hard way. I had a very rough consultation when I wasn't fully aware of my boundaries. And it was a disaster because the person fully thought I was a therapist, but it was unsaid, right?
Right.
So that's one misconception. And the other one, I made a mistake when I chose my latest name, the Trauma Informed. That's my website name and my Instagram name, that PT also stands for physical therapist, not just for personal trainers. So people may think I'm a physiotherapist or physical therapist. So that's my, it's okay. Well, all I have to do is to educate people. So this is a great way to talk about this. Yeah, these are the things. But most people, when they find me, they already know. As I mentioned earlier, they already know that they need someone like this.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Have you ever had somebody that's come to you and really has seen this as more of a luxury of a necessity as opposed to, hey, this is really around mindful movement, self-care, where they thought it was going to be, more that upper scale luxury kind of
Very good
personal
question.
trainer?
I have to think. So I believe the answer is no,
Okay.
or they did not tell me that they were thinking this. Like price wise, it's definitely a different price range than regular personal trainers. Because sorry, I don't mean to be rude because all trainers they have a place and it's an important work that they all do. But what I do different is what I offer is a lot more than just you come through the door or open the laptop and open up Zoom. I prepare for the session. After the session, I send you the recording, or if you're in-person client, I take videos, pictures of you, and I send that to them. And I never share any of the footage on Instagram. I always take my own videos because I keep my clients' privacy. I take it very serious. I share testimonials, but that's about it. And I like to do like video testimonials too that I put up, but obviously that's only if it's with consent. And I also send the document of the session. So the cues, the different wording that you like to use, I take a bunch of notes, and after the session in the next 24 hours I send the recording and the document. So and based on the document I prepare for the next session, or based on the notes, so I'm able to progress the program accordingly based on how often do you do it. So it's not about you coming in seeing me 2-3 times a week and you don't have to do anything in your free time. I have a couple of clients that they need that type of support. However, I highly recommend to clients that do your own work, come back to me, and we progress. So I don't have to be there, hold your hands.
Yes.
If you have questions, you can reach me by WhatsApp, or if you're in Canada, by text. So we have that too with you, Caroline, that, hey, I'm not sure how to do this. What do you suggest? So we can always have this ongoing conversation, how to tweak the program based on what your needs are. So it's a lot more, very different support from just coming through the door, doing an hour session with me. I really want you to have the tools that you mentioned earlier, that, okay, I'm tired. How can I tweak this program to make it more accessible? How can I do things in a more gentle way? Or so I give you learn that critical thinking that you may not get through a personal training session, because all you do is, I don't know, 3 blocks or 4 blocks of 3 exercises. I'm
Right.
just saying something, and focusing on the movement rather than getting your whys answered.
Yes.
And learning about your body mechanics. So you really gain the knowledge how your body moves.
Right.
So I'm giving all the knowledge that I see, all the movement patterns that I see in you, I share it with you. So and you can go back to the notes and videos years later, and you might be able to peel back more layers.
Yeah, well, and I love that extra because as much as we spend some time together on Zoom, you do have that personal touch so that there is, to me, there's more, I'm going to call it intimate for lack of a better word. There's more
Mhm.
intimate, personalized touch with you than if you have a personal trainer at the gym, because I can reach out to you, and I have, in fact, and
Yeah.
say, my ankles are killing me today. I can't walk. I don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
You then in turn have a conversation with me. We may have a mini back and forth. And a lot
Mhm.
of times you'll send me some suggestions or you'll send me a short video or
Mhm.
something. And what I love about that is the ability, like I said, for me to learn, one, to listen more to my body
Yeah.
and to really hear what it's telling me, but also then have that support to go, okay, well, maybe I've tried this and this, but Gabby, I know, has got something that's going to work if I can't figure it
Mhm.
out. So to me, it's way more intimate than what you would get with a personal trainer
Yeah.
who has a program and is just running you through the program.
Yeah, and keeping the goal in mind for the whole time. And trust me, that's very important to know that we are going from A to B.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the nervous system rules.
It does.
Yeah,
It will
so we
tell
may
you.
have to detour a little bit and respect the
Yeah.
body's limits. And by you reaching out to me, it helps you to speak up for your needs. That, hey, this is what's happening. How can you support me in this? And it makes me feel so good that, and I don't try to have the answers right away. I'd rather, and that's my inner work, that's my personal piece, that I don't have to, I'm not making assumptions that, okay, I may ask back a couple of times that, okay, what does this mean? So narrowing down what the answer could be. And it's a fun, we are not rushing the process, but it's fun at the same time because we don't need to have the answers right away, but with the back and forth, we can get to the answers.
Yeah. And I mean, I could go on about the gradual
I
to the
know.
celebration of like, so let's talk about, in your opinion, what does true resilience look like in both movement and leadership? I'd love your opinion on that. And then how does that trauma informed approach support that kind of resilience?
Let's break it into two again, okay?
Yeah.
Just in
Yeah.
case. So resilience means to me in leadership and my own work, right? You said,
Yep. Yes.
to be flexible in the moment, to be aware of my own boundaries, my own integrity, and work within that. At the same time, there's this rigid, unflexible structure that we have to follow, if that makes sense. We can move within that range, what feels safe to us, but that requires huge awareness that, okay, I'm not speaking of my people pleaser me. I'm actually saying, okay, this doesn't feel good to me. So I say, I don't want to work with this person.
Right.
And I've had that last weekend. And first I caved and I realized that we were going to collab and I did not feel safe in that environment and I had to call it off, but I didn't have it in me in the moment. So I sat with it, and the next day I texted the lady that I feel there's better fit for us out there. And she was trauma informed, so she completely was fine with it. So how to work within the range that feels safe for us, at the same time knowing our boundaries, our limits, when we have to say no. And we are not going into, oh, it's not about being regulated all the time and zen as fuck, because that's not always possible.
Right.
But recognizing when we are becoming dysregulated and like, okay, this is happening, it's okay, the tiger isn't coming, so we are not going to be eaten, but we feel very uncomfortable, or even we go out of our window of tolerance. I'm not going to get into that, but window of tolerance is, but I guess it's the name says it itself. But how we can come back from that dysregulated state and find our baseline, come back within our window of tolerance and become regulated again. And that's where the self-care comes in, that, okay, knowing ourselves enough that, okay, what do I need to do in order to feel regulated again? So that's what resiliency means to me. And that was a very loaded answer.
I love it. No, I love it because I think about so many leaders, different leaders that I've either worked with or reported into in the past, and who has been good at being resilient, who has been good at knowing when they need to pause, knowing when they need to pivot, knowing when they need to stay the course. But to your point, that self-awareness is
Yes.
so important. And yeah, I love that because to me, the resiliency, when I was thinking about it before you came on, I was like, you have to be resilient in movement and resilient in leadership. Like you
Yeah.
can't, the minute you give up on either one of them, right? You need to be resilient. You need to
Yeah.
find different ways because things are going to change, environment's going to change, we're aging, we're going to change, right? Like there's different things. And so we always have to be self-aware and listening. So I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, that was
You're
good.
welcome.
That was really good.
Do you still want to go back to the other part
Yeah,
of the
sure. Go ahead.
no,
Go.
no, but ask the question again.
Okay, where was it here?
The
So
movement, resiliency when it comes to
yeah.
movement.
So how does trauma-informed approach to fitness support leaders in building that kind of resilience?
Ooh, gosh.
You think about high stress or change management, right? Like if there's a big organizational change or a shift in direction or whatever, that causes a lot of stress. And so how
In
do
my own business, or sorry, I
any,
just want to understand
yeah,
the
I just think
question.
leaders in general and anybody, right? And I think the end result, whether business or you're in the corporate world, is very similar, right? We all have numbers that we have to hit. Like there's all of us have to hit certain things to be
Yeah.
successful. So I think there are times when things shift that are out of our control, that change that can cause high stress. And so would love to know how they could use that to support them as in that resilience piece, thinking through what you teach.
Yeah. And that's where support comes into play big time. Surrounding ourselves with people who believe in us
Yeah.
and we can support each other throughout those hard times. I've had multiple business coaches. One was Melissa, that our connector. That's how we met. And talking to those people who believe in us and remind us that we are capable beings and we can trust the process. I feel we have to get to a certain level that may not sound right, but I can't word it differently in this moment, that if we grew up with very little trust within the body and or within the environment, then we think that's a given and everyone is like that, so that we don't get the unconditional love, we don't get the support at what we need even when we mess it up. So that's why it's important to find our people. We are in Pulse, the women's circle, and I know that I can always go there and find support. And you ladies will always tell me that you're a wonderful coach. You have what it takes. And that's what I do for my clients too, that I show them the evidence muscle. Melissa always says, I always go back to that. Remind yourself what you're capable of. You've done that before, but it's kind of woohoo, kind of spiritual, because a lot of times we cannot pinpoint. We just have to trust the process. So it's not, but when we can go back to a memory, or hey, now I can do squats and now I can do this,
Yep.
then that it reminds us of, okay, if I'm able to do that, I'm able to do this too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. Love that. So tying into that, can you highlight or share a story of a transformation that someone you helped experience through your approach?
Mm-hmm.
Where's your biggest success? What's your success
Gosh.
story? You've been doing this for a couple of years, so I figure you've got
Yeah. Okay, I can't pinpoint one person because everyone is so different and very similar at the same time. Because when we talk about business, that, oh, we have to find our niche. That's, it's hard. But I have this year, multiple women started working with me later, and their husbands started to work with me as well after they finished the first or second package. And so those two women are very special for that reason. Other people are special for different reasons, but because they believed in the program and they saw the shift, they recognized that they believed in this and believe in themselves, they suggested to their husbands to work with me. And there was no question that it's going to work out.
Right.
So, and these women, oh yeah, so this lady is an in-person client, and she was doing her homework at home, and the husband said, well, I was kind of envy her that she has this and she's doing it, and now, hey, now you're doing it too. And oh yeah, so it's really cool to see that. She mentioned, I don't want to mention names, last weekend she told me that, hey, when we walk, we have very different conversations. And we talk about the feet, we talk about how to move. And I'm like, that's so probably because this is the most recent I can think of.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's always, we have this little, like this triangle, this not relationship, but we all know of each other, right, and everyone respects everyone in this little group. And I see there's so much support going on the wife's side towards their husband, and the husbands are absolutely awesome. They're sweet as hell. And it reminds me of, there's good people out there. There are healthy marriages, healthy couples out there that I may have not experienced just yet, but I know it exists. And it makes me really happy that they have the trust in the program and in my coaching skills, that they felt comfortable to suggest their husbands to work with me.
And to make a difference in both their lives.
Absolutely.
Which is, if you think about it, that's beautiful that she brought him in because she wants him to be able to move and do things that she can do so that they can enjoy their time together. Absolutely. It's heartwarming, isn't it? Yeah.
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 And it's so funny that the two women got the husbands on board in like almost at the same time. Like maybe there was a month or two between the two when they reached out to me that, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And it's how it works out. It's really fun. I'm really blessed to have awesome clients.
Yes. Yeah. And I was going to ask you, this ties into it, but what is the biggest thing you've learned throughout your journey that you can share with our listeners, whether it's a lesson, a transformative experience? What do you think? It's the biggest thing you've learned.
That people accept me for who I am. And I don't want to say that my clients love me unconditionally, but they trust me. And
I'm like, yeah, they do.
But there's a level of respect and love, and we can have open, honest conversations. And they come to me with a, hey, this is what you said, can we talk this through? Because I'm just human at the end, but we can have very grown-up conversations and very mature relationships. This ties to all relationships in my closer proximity, but that's not how I grew up.
Right.
And
that's a self-taught lesson.
Yeah, self-taught. And I'm seeing a huge shift since I let go of my last relationship and my best friend, because I started to see that they are not good for my mental health.
Right.
And everything started to shift this year.
It's beautiful.
business, everything, because I'm more alignment with myself and I don't have to. And people make me feel enough and I know I'm enough.
That is beautiful. And I think, that's it's a snippet of part of what you get when you work with somebody like a Gabby, right? Like I said, it's not, you don't, and I don't know, but I know when I had a personal trainer again way back, you didn't have that relationship. It was very much you came in, they kind of, this is where we left off, this is where we're getting to, okay, we're done, this is what we're going to do next week. You didn't have that true connection, and to be able to interact with somebody when you truly need to be vulnerable and get support, right? Because you
Yeah,
are, when you can't do something, you have to be very vulnerable and transparent,
absolutely.
which is not always easy for people, but it helps you to get there quicker. So I love that. So,
Yeah.
Gabby, how can people get in touch with you? So I'd love you to talk about the two different ways that they can reach out to you. And of course, I'll include your links in the show notes.
So I hang out on Instagram most of the times because of my age. I like to say. So it's the Trauma Informed PT. And the website there where people can see my work is thetraumainformedpt.com. And this is a really good time. I'm not sure the new copies, the changes will be up to date. Everything will be up to date by the time your podcast episode comes out, but it's on the way, under construction. So everything will be up to date very shortly. So I'm really excited. And the two ways people can work with me is one-on-one. So the website will explain all that, prices, what people get for the different what's included in the different packages. And also what I'm really proud, and it's again under construction on the way, is my self-paced remote program. So that's going to be at a lower price point. So people who may not feel ready or they don't think the one-on-one work is in reach at the moment, then they can do the remote program, self-paced. And that's going to be on my website too. So the link is not ready just yet, but it's going to be soon. So there's going to be 3 months, 6 months, and 12-month package options. It's a subscription-based program. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, I'm excited for you. We've been talking about that.
Well, I know you
Very
gave me a
excited.
lot of good pointers, so
Yes.
which is so helpful.
Yes. And Gabby, maybe you can share a little bit about what I loved about your one-on-one was the very first day we met. You do an assessment. So you do an alignment, and I'd love for you to share with people because nobody does that.
Yeah. So after the consultation, the free consultation, we dive deep into your goals, intentions, what your previous experiences, your traumas, and the assessment that you mentioned it's very special. I created myself based on, I picked and chose what worked for me. So it's very different because it's not performance based. You don't have to be able to do X amount of reps. It's first I start with a visual piece where I watch you just stand. I look at how you hold your body, how to carry yourself. So I look at your bone structure, the things that we talked about earlier. Your body language tells me a story. Yeah, exactly. Oh, the shoulders. Yeah, so I look for misalignment/alignments, what I see. And after that, we do some balance, because the balance can be very telling if one leg is, your balance is better on one leg than the other one. It's a very typical thing for many of us. And we do a couple of mobility, flexibility movements, and we finish with a couple of strength exercises. And so we do squats, we do push-ups, plank, and some rotational move. The plank is the only one that I time. The only reason I do it because I want to see when your movement falls apart, and it gives me a good idea where your core strength is at the moment. But that's where the trauma-informed tools start. I start to, little IV drops that I start giving you little trauma-informed tools even at that point to make sure that you do it in a very safe way.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and that was, like I said, it was something unique. That's why I wanted to make sure you shared it because nobody's ever
Yeah.
shared
Thank you.
something like that
Yeah.
with me ever. So it was interesting to see, other than when you go for one of those executive, I remember going once for an executive physical and they do the stress test, but that is completely different. You're running on a treadmill.
Oh, but that can be also traumatic. I mean, I understand the point.
Yes.
It's really helpful, but it's in a setting that can be very intense and traumatic at the same time. So I feel like it might be a must, but it might not be the best way to do. But
Mhm. Definitely
anyways, I
not.
could go
Yeah.
on. And
Yeah.
the last thing I want to mention that the
Yeah.
reason why I do the assessment, because I look at the body language and based on the assessment, I create the first session, the first program. I already give you a couple of tension release movements during the assessment because that gives you a little push that, okay, you can start your journey and start doing the things that help you release tension.
Yep.
So the program, after the assessment, I create the program for you, and then that's what I bring to the next session. And we always progress based on the previous session. And one thing that I also want to mention that how I created my program is first tension release in the body. So the muscles become more relaxed. The second step is mobility and stretching. So the body comes into alignment and starts to prepare itself for strength movements. And then we do strength. So I like to call it like once you graduate, you get to do things that you get more excited about. So when people hear you get to do strength, they are so excited because they know they got to a level that they had to go through the process
Right.
before.
To get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. Love that. Thank you. That was super informative. And like I said, if anybody has any questions, reach out to me because I am
Yeah.
working with Gabi and I have loved what I'm doing and can speak to it personally. But thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and sharing, just even for people to understand trauma, to understand somatics, to understand why it's important to do movement, especially like I always say to people, you carry that stress, say maybe from your 30s to when you retire. That's like 35 years of stress you're carrying with you. It's going to take a toll on your body. So start taking care of it
Absolutely.
now. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Bite it in the butt sooner
That's,
than later.
that's right. You have to do
But
it at
thank you
some
so.
point. No worries. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And I thoroughly
Thank you.
enjoyed our time together.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Leader. If you want to go even deeper, then visit my website at carolinebarrett.com, find some free resources, and look at all the different ways that I can support you to become your best self. Remember, change begins with just one small step. It's those tiny actions that start you on the path to achieving your dreams and finding balance. And as always, life is an experience. So take a moment to enjoy the journey and appreciate the progress you make along the way. Until next time, keep taking those small steps, savor the journey, and lead with courage and authenticity. This is Caroline reminding you to stay bold, stay balanced, and keep moving confidently towards your dreams. Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Leader. If you want to go even deeper, then visit my website at carolinebarrett.com, find some free resources, and look at all the different ways that I can support you to become your best self. Remember, change begins with just one small step. It's those tiny actions that start you on the path to achieving your dreams and finding balance. And as always, life is an experience. So take a moment to enjoy the journey and appreciate the progress you make along the way. Until next time, keep taking those small steps, savor the journey, and lead with courage and authenticity. This is Caroline reminding you to stay bold, stay balanced, and keep moving confidently towards your dreams.